Hi everybody, and in this video I am going to show you how to set up a leopard gecko enclosure from start to finish. So that's when you've got the bare bones of the enclosure all the way through to the decor side. So please, as always, sit back, relax and enjoy the content. So let's set the scene. You've just got your enclosure home. You've also got the heating and lighting equipment and potentially some decor bits. So where do you go from here? So first of all, what you would need to do is you need to attach your heating and lighting. So for the purpose of this video, we are going to be using the Arcadia shade dwellers. But if you have any other types of like linear T5 UVB or even T8s, then that's absolutely fine. The steps are relatively similar. So this is the bulb that we are going to be using. So this is the shade dweller from Arcadia. So within the Shade Dweller kit, you will have a male and female adapter, so you can plug more than one Pro T5 kit in there if need be. You'll also find your mains plug. You will find a bung if you're just using the Pro T5 kit itself. So the bung just goes in the other end just to stop any like moisture and stuff like that getting into the unit itself. The bulb is also included in this. And to round it off, you will also have some fittings and some screws as well. Now, what you need to do is you need to plot out where your bulb is going. So we would always recommend to have the bulb just over to one side a little bit and also have it kind of like adjacent to the basking spot bulb. You don't want like your basking spot bulb there and then right next to it, you're going to have the UVB bulb. What you want is you want them overlapping. They're also quite easy to attach. So in the kit, like I said earlier, you will have two little fittings and two little screws. So you would just screw those to the roof. Please make sure that they are they are relatively straight, otherwise your bulb's going to be like really wonky. So once the screws are in, you will then clip the actual T5 unit in. So once you know it's in, it'll kind of make like a clicking sound or like a thud sound, and then you know you're absolutely golden. From there, you are then going to attach your heat source. So this is going to be your light emitting heat source or your basking spot bulb. So again, nowadays, most of these kits do already come with screws. However, the Arcadia ceramic lamp holders do not come with screws, so just make sure that you get them from like a hardware store. So in the UK, places like B&Q or Wix or anywhere really that does like small little screws that will fit in there. Once you're happy with the positioning of your ceramic lamp holder, just screw it in and then pop your bulb in as well. So at this point, you'll have like a couple of wires kind of like dangling around. What we would say to do is make sure that they are trailing through the back. So nowadays, most vivariums have vents that can also act as access ports for your electronics. If not, then you're going to have to go through the old school way of popping it through the vent, slitting the vent, wires through, there you go. If, however, you are using a glass enclosure, depending on the type of enclosure, they should also have like ports at the back where you can pull your wires through. If not, then you might need to do a little bit of DIY. Once the UVB and the ceramic lamp holder are fitted, it is then time to think about your thermostat. And in true Blue Peter fashion, here is one that I have prepared earlier. So this is your thermostat. So your thermostat is going to have 3 wires coming off it, okay? So wire number 1, come on down. This is the probe. So this is the only piece of the thermostat that is going to go inside of your enclosure. This is what's going to tell the thermostat what temperature it is. Then wire number 3 is what your heat source is going to plug into. So the heat source just fits quite nicely, click it in there and away you go. And then the other plug is the mains. Now on the actual thermostat itself, you'll see that it has a little dial. So this dial is what you're going to be setting your temperature at. So once you found your ideal temperature, away you go. What we'd always recommend doing as well is just before you place the animal actually inside the enclosure, make sure that all of the equipment is working. So now you've checked that all of your equipment is working, so the UVB bulb works, the basking spot bulb works, the thermostat itself works, we are now ready to start kitting out our enclosure. The first place that I always like to start out is, in fact, the substrate. Now, the substrates that I have chosen here are the ProRep Desert Life and the Exoterra Stone Desert Bedding. Now, the reason why I have chosen these two substrates is that the Desert Bedding from the Exoterra range, once it gets like wet and then dries really hard, it'll form really hard compacted clay areas, which are really ideal for digging, and leopard geckos will in fact dig. And the reason why I have chosen the ProRep Desert Life substrate is because it's pretty good for plant growth. So in this enclosure, we are going to put some live plants in there. So first things first, let's get these two substrates inside the enclosure. Once you've placed your substrates in the enclosure, give them a really nice kind of like mix around, just so you're mixing in both the clay and the Desert Life substrate. I would always recommend having some areas that are more of one substrate than the other, and then just the rest of the substrate, just have it a really nice mix. So once you have got your substrate in there, it is now time for decoration. Now, in here, I'm going to be using quite a lot of different kinds of rocks. And I'm also going to try and create some sort of shelf system in there, so the basking spot is a little bit higher. Now, the reason why I like to use rocks inside my enclosures is because the basking spot bulb will heat these rocks up during the day. So on a nighttime, the enclosure still kind of remains a little bit warmer than it usually should. The leopard gecko can also utilize these warm rocks in case it is having difficulty digesting insects that have got like really hard carapace, so things like mealworms. So what I have done in this enclosure, I have also created a kind of little mini cavern system. So if this animal wants to, it can navigate around the enclosure unseen. I've also provided some small spaces behind the back that you can't really see if the animal wants to cryptic bask. So if it wants to come out during the daytime and bask, taking some of that heat and some of that UVB, it can do, and it doesn't have to be seen either. So once the rocks and stuff are all in place, it is then time to add your hardscape decor pieces. So in this instance, I've chosen kind of like a tree, kind of like wood stumpy kind of thing that again, the animal can access underneath it. So it can also use it as a hide. The tunnel at the back also has access to kind of like the cavern system to the rocks to the left-hand side. It is then time to add the hides. So I'm going to add 3 hides in here. So this isn't including the hides that are naturally occurring inside the enclosure anyway, in terms of the tree stump and the like rocky outcrops that we've created in there as well. So in the 3 resin hides that I'm placing in here, I'm also going to place moss in here as well. So the animal has got access to humid hides. Now, this is going to be extremely important when the animal is shedding, or if the animal is a little bit too hot. It can come in here as a bit of like a humid refuge, and it can thermoregulate. We'll then start adding the hard woodscape pieces in there as well. So leopard geckos do in fact like to climb. So it's really important to offer them some climbing opportunities in there as well. Now, they're not going to climb like crested geckos or any other kind of gecko like that. These are primarily terrestrial, but if given the opportunity to climb, they will utilize it. Once we've added the hardwood scaped areas in here, we're then going to place some live plants. So in this enclosure, I've kind of gone for like a rocky outcrop, scrubland, bushland kind of area. So I'm going to primarily be using different kinds of grasses. So when I'm popping plants and stuff inside the enclosure, what I always make sure that I don't do is place them too close to the basking spot. These plants will frizzle and they will die. And then finally, when you're happy with your plant placement, again, it doesn't have to be live plants. You can do this with artificial plants as well. It's completely up to you. Like I said in previous videos, I'm a natural bug, so I prefer the kind of like naturalistic kind of look. But once you've got your plants in there, it's then time for leaf litter. So we're just going to be using the ProRep leaf litter block in this. We're just going to scrunch it all up, put it in a tub, and then we're going to just like salt bay it all around the enclosure. And once that's done, it is then time to add the inhabitant. So we are going to put Apollo, our leopard gecko, in here. So as you can see, Apollo is having quite a bit of fun exploring this enclosure. Now, what you can do as well to make sure that the plants do absolutely thrive in here, you can also add a jungle dawn. So going back to what I was saying with the male and female adapter on the Pro T5 kit, if you've got a jungle dawn, you can just plug that into the same thing. So it's basically running off the same plug. And that about does it for this video. So thank you very much for sticking to the end and watching it. If you did like the content, please make sure that you give us a like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one. Cheers, Ducky Bobs.